Hi, everyone, and welcome to One Take. I'm Monica May, and this evening we're going to speak with Deborah Barra, and we had to go back and forth. Is it Barra? Is it Barra? And she said one thing that I'll never forget. It's like Yogi Bear. So, Deborah Barra.
You got it. Yep. Hi, thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on, and tell Kathy we said thank you as well, because she called a couple of times. You know what, Deborah, I think that when we think about that state attorney's office, it is an office that we never really see. You never really see that person. So we're going to get to know you tonight.
Great.
So we're going to start with that one question. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am the youngest of three. I have two older brothers. My parents just celebrated their 53rd wedding anniversary yesterday. Yeah, they're remarkable, still going strong. And so I grew up in that environment where you pretty much, if you weren't going to attend a family dinner, you needed a doctor's note. They take it very seriously that we are, family is very important. And so I grew up here in the Dr. Phillips area. I graduated from Dr. Phillips High School. I then went to Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, which was wonderful. It's a beautiful, beautiful city.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, I worked at a local nonprofit organization called the Gift for Teaching. And, you know, I learned a lot there. I saw a lot of great volunteers who wanted to help the community. And I just felt like maybe we were addressing the result of a problem rather than the problem itself. And so I wanted to address problems, real problems head on. So I figured going to law school is a great way to do that. So I actually asked my boss at the time, what's the best law school in the state of Florida? And I don't want to offend anybody out there, but
What did they say?
He said University of Florida. Okay. So I applied to one school. It was University of Florida. And I figured if I got in, I was meant to be a lawyer. And if not, I would figure something else out. And I got in, I loved it. And I took a trial practice class where I actually got to do a mock trial, and I loved that. And then I ended up interning at the state attorney's office, and I never left. I've been at the state attorney's office for over 17 years now.
That is amazing. When you came in, you were doing what? And then your ascent. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when I interned, I was in a great position because I was able to actually do trial work. I was what's called a certified legal intern. So I remember my first day, I actually got to participate in a trial, and at lunch, they were calling up a jury, and I remember calling my mother saying, there was a real jury coming, like real people are going to be forced to listen to me. And it was so exciting. And so I started off at doing misdemeanors, you know, low level crimes. And in the progress of 17 years, I've done every type of case, homicides, death penalty, and really everything in between.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now that's over 17 years. You've worked under 3 different state attorneys. Each had a different style, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What would you say you picked up from each of them?
Yeah. So I was hired under Mr. Lawson Lamar, and I worked for him for about 10 years. And what I got from him was a sense of being a community partner. He was very big into partnerships and relationships in terms of getting things done. And that was always something that stood out to me. And then when Jeff Ashton won the election, I worked for him for 4 years. And I think the thing that sticks out to me about his administration was that he was a trial attorney. He loved trying cases. He loved trying homicide cases, and he was very hands-on with the office, and people could go to him and ask questions. And he had a very open door policy, a very relaxed style that I think was really beneficial to the office. And now for 3.5 years, I am Aramis Ayala's Chief Assistant State Attorney, and I've served under her. And I think my takeaway from her administration thus far is that she has sparked conversations that were long overdue in terms of criminal justice reform, in terms of the death penalty. I mean, I don't think anybody really stopped to think about a lot of these issues until she came into office and was taking stances. And I think that that's really healthy for the community to really spend time thinking about really important issues.
Although the death penalty for her in that situation, I guess because of the way it was brought up, did not fare as well. What is your take on the death penalty?
Sure. So I personally, as somebody who has prosecuted a death penalty case, I've also been on the death penalty review board for the past 3.5 years. And my personal opinion is that I don't see any value in the death penalty. I don't think that it deters anybody from committing a crime. And I don't think that what it does to homicide survivors, the family members, I think it doesn't give them any closure because there's so many appeals and the case is constantly, it's really never over for the family members. And so they don't get to move on. So I personally do not think that it has a lot of value. I also understand that it's the law, and my personal opinion doesn't carry the day when it comes to that. You have to follow the law. So under my administration, I will continue with the death penalty review board to evaluate which cases we would file a notice on. And the reason why I believe in that is because I have been a participant of that review board, and I learn something every time we meet. You know, having so many different perspectives in the room, I think is really important when you're dealing with an issue as big as somebody's life.
So who makes up that review board?
So right now, it is made up of homicide attorneys and certain, me as the chief assistant state attorney. There's the head of homicide. They're experienced attorneys who have prosecuted death penalty cases or at least homicides are on the board, so that they have a better insight into what we're looking at in terms of aggravators and mitigators and the legal aspect of it.
So there's never, and this may sound like a dumb question, but there's never anyone from the community on a review panel?
No, and for a lot of reasons. One of them is that as prosecutors, so we take an oath, and we have to be sworn law enforcement officers and sworn prosecutors to make charging decisions. And so you have to be a prosecutor when you're determining what charges to bring forth on another individual. And so the panel has to be made up of prosecutors. We also have confidential information that we review that is not public knowledge, criminal histories, mental health reports, things along those lines that you can't give it to a citizen to review because they're not sworn attorneys, they haven't taken the oath.
No, it was just a question. I've been wanting to ask that question for some time now. Since you've been in that position over the 17 years, are there any special projects that you've worked on, that you've spearheaded, that are just so important to you that you will continue on if you are the next state attorney?
Yeah, so there's actually been a lot. I think units such as conviction integrity, although I did not spearhead that, but it has been brought to our office under Ms. Ayala's administration. I think that has a lot of value, a lot of merit. I think that revamping the Brady list, which is a list of officers that have some credibility issues, is really important. I also my passion is the prosecution of sex offenders. And I'm really big on attacking human traffickers. And what I would do in my administration is really focus on the prosecution of human traffickers. I also, in my administration, will form a government accountability unit. So basically, any corrupt politicians, corrupt individuals in our community in Orange and Osceola County, I want to form a unit so that we can go after that, because the corruption exists and we need to do something about it.
How would you do that? Because that's going to be one that's tricky. And I know you've gone after politicians and even police at some time. When you think about going after government officials, what's going to be the take? Because there's nothing there like that now.
Right. So what happens now is we do get citizen complaints. And typically what we do is we forward them to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for investigation purposes. And they have their own separate criteria in terms of what it needs to reach in order for them to launch an investigation. And unfortunately, what I've seen is if it doesn't make that criteria, a lot of times these things don't get investigated. And so what I would do is I would keep them in-house, because we have access to the grand jury. And the grand jury is a group of citizens who come in, they serve on the grand jury, and they're an investigative body. So they have subpoena power, and we act as the legal advisors to the grand jury. When I say we, the state attorney acts as the legal advisor. So they can do full investigations. They can subpoena witnesses to testify in front of them. And I believe that we can utilize them in order to go after corrupt government officials.
Good luck, I'm telling you, good luck on that one. Deb, the death of George Floyd has spun the needle off the axis. I mean, the threat of violence, the tension between police and the streets is now at an all-time high. You say that you want to help build bridges of trust between police and the community. How will your office go after that? And tell me something that we haven't heard,
Sure.
Well, something good.
Yeah. So here's how I think we start. There's obviously not an easy solution. It's not, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then we do it and it's fixed. So it has to be a combination of a lot of things. One is, I believe we have to lobby the legislature and to get legislation that does away with portions of the Officers' Bill of Rights, so that it's easier for police departments to fire cops who have misconduct records. And so I start there. The next thing is you have to have, I believe, good relationships with police chiefs. And the reason why I say that is because when I am reviewing body camera footage, for example, and I see conduct that doesn't maybe rise to a crime, which is what I'm focused on, because I deal with crimes, but I see bad behavior, somebody mistreating a citizen, saying something.
A knee on a neck.
What's that?
A knee on a neck.
Yes. Well, that's a crime that, but, I've seen just verbally people mistreat, and I think that's part of the whole culture. I mean, yes, it's the crimes, but it's the behavior leading up to the crimes too, and the attitudes and approaching people. You don't need to approach somebody and be aggressive right out of the gate, and that makes the other person uneasy, and it creates tension, and it builds, and so we need to have great relationships with law enforcement so that I can pick up the phone and say, this is unacceptable. I'm showing you this video. I'm sending you this body camera. Please follow up with this. I want to know what happens. And I've done that in the past 3.5 years. And I can say it has been well received in terms of, I have had, the undersheriff in my conference room. We have watched body camera where we both agree that it's inappropriate behavior on law enforcement.
Mhm.
They conduct and initiate investigative internal investigation. And so I think that that's what I mean by building trust. And then you have to be transparent about it. You have to come out and say, this is what we're doing, so that the public knows. Because right now, I think that the public believes that the state attorney's office, if they know what we do, is an arm of law enforcement. And we are not. We are an arm of justice. I do not work for the police. They do not work for me. I determine justice, and that's what I stand for. And so if somebody is acting in an inappropriate manner, or if they're somebody who commits a crime, but they just happen to be in a uniform, I do not care. You've committed a crime and you're going to be held responsible.
Okay. Good to know that. Good to know that. Before we go over, I wanted you in less than 45 seconds.
Okay.
Tell me why Deb Barra is to be the next state attorney for Orange and Osceola counties.
Sure. So I have the trial experience. I have prosecuted every type of crime from misdemeanors to the death penalty, but I also have the management experience in terms of seeing what has worked and what hasn't worked and what we can do better. And I've had a front row seat to that. For the past 3.5 years, I've been doing the day-to-day operations of the office. And so I bring all of my experience as well as my trial experience. And I have a perspective in terms of I've implemented other people's policies, but it's time for me to implement my own now. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay. All right. Chief Assistant State Attorney Deborah Barra. August 18th is the election. Make sure that you get out there. It's important for us to do the presidential. We're talking about Trump. We're talking about Biden. But we have to talk about what's happening in our own backyard. Deborah, thank you so much for taking a moment to be on One Take with us tonight.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You stay safe.
You as well. Be good to yourself.